This is the Round Table, a talk show brought to you by the Glastonbury Goddess Conference. In this circle, the priestesses of the ceremonial circle, the weavers of our annual gathering, talk about pivotal topics about our community, spirituality, and goddess. Good evening and good afternoon, beautiful goddess community. Thank you for being here with us today in this live stream. We are here today with a panel of 5 wonderful ceremonialists from the Glastonbury Goddess Conference Ceremonial Circle. Before I introduce you today's topics and each one of them personally, I would love you to introduce the powerhouse, the creator, and the place where all this comes from, really. So where this community generates from. Allow me to introduce you to the Goddess Conference. Join us this year for the 29th Glastonbury Goddess Conference, a joyful gathering of goddess-loving people, a 6 days in-person event in Glastonbury, Avalon, running from Tuesday 30th July to Sunday 4th August 2024, with the fringe events starting from Sunday 28th July. This year the theme is the Goddess of Healing. It's our maiden year, the first year of a new 5-year cycle. International presenters, transformative workshops and experiences, deep ceremonies on the sacred land of Avalon, community, art, fun, and love for Goddess. Let your healing journey begin this year. Join us for the Glastonbury Goddess Conference, Goddess of Healing. There are so many options to participate: full conference tickets, weekend tickets, day tickets. Find what suits you best and get your ticket now at goddessconference.com. And this is a beautiful event happening every year in Glastonbury, Avalon, UK. And we invite you to join us this year as well and get your ticket at goddessconference.com. And now, starting with today's topic, I would love to introduce you 𝘕𝗔𝗕𝗨𝗡𝗗.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Lovely to see you all again.
Caroline Stevens.
Hi, everybody.
Katinka Sutens.
Hello, darlings.
𝘬𝗓𝗪𝗓𝗡𝗏.
Hey, folks.
And Amanda Baker.
Hello.
Everyone, welcome to today's topic, which is yonic confusion. What did we mean exactly with this topic? What we meant is an open that's a question itself. But what we meant was a discussion of womb healing, yoni healing, and in general, the sexual healing that we hear a lot about in our goddess community and in general in the spiritual world. So we have plenty of people here in this panel who are experts of the matter and people who experienced it within the community. So this is an open discussion, and we love Angie to start this conversation. Thank you, Angie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, from my perspective, I've had my own womb healing journey that then led me on to looking at other people's womb healing. So for me, that whole question of what is yonic confusion, we really have to understand ourselves first and our own healing before we can actually go out and start healing others. So particularly with any intimate healing, sacred sexual healing, then we really have to have done the work on ourselves. And I think the unhealthy practices, we can discuss those and share those. But from my perspective, what is healthy? What is a healthy therapist? What is a healthy way to be held in a group? So many different things that we can put into the mix to what we all consider personally acceptable or healthy or unhealthy, and it can be different for different people, which is why this conversation is going to be great. We're going to have different opinions, but for me, I think one of the biggest ones is probably around lack of professional boundaries. That's quite a big one for me. So basically inappropriate behavior with either one-to-one or in groups. So, yeah, well, that's a good question. What are the safeguards around those healthy boundaries?
I think
someone
this
else
is
can jump in.
yeah, I'd like to jump in. There's this really interesting place that you mentioned, Angie, between your own personal healing journey and then holding that space for others. And the step between that really is an initiation piece. And yeah, and we really need to have the initiation into being the space holder, into being the facilitator, into being the priest, the priestess, the one who is holding the space of initiation. And that's a journey, and sometimes we can misread that. We can have, we can go to a workshop, a weekend, and we can have this big experience of opening in our bodies, particularly around our sexuality. We can feel very expanded and very in our agency in our relationships, and then be like, I want to go out and I want to share this with other people, and I want to bring it into the world. And we really have to consider the initiatory steps into doing that, and really have people around us who can really reflect where we are, what we're offering, and how we're offering it as well. And so for me, like a big part of sexual healing practice is interwoven with community, and those pieces actually cannot be separated. If we have isolation of practitioners in the field, then I think the power of the transmission and the integrity of the transmission often decreases or weakens.
And support.
Yes, as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I love what you're both saying, and I think I can really resonate with that. I think the personal journey is essential, the personal healing journey, but also the personal healing journey in the subtle, because it may not be an actual traumatic wounding. It may just be the subtle conditioning around shame, or around what is allowed or not allowed, or what is moral, and to actually kind of recreate a blueprint of rightful behavior, rightful authenticity in your own sexuality. There's a weird sound going on. Did everybody hear that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, in your own sexuality, in your own sexual interactions, in how you feel about your sexual energy, and then in how to bridge that into any kind of healing modality that you might be bringing. Because I really agree with actually both of you, Angie, I know from your own practices, and you, Sadhu, is equally so. This initiation piece that you mentioned is, it can't just be an initiation in yourself of having done some sort of course. For me, that's the beginning. There is an apprenticeship stage that we skip over in our society, in my feeling, a lot nowadays, where you've done something and oops, now you're the sort of expert or suddenly capable of teaching. Whereas actually teaching something, or holding a healing space for someone, or accompanying someone into a deeper journey of actually undoing sexual trauma, that is a whole entirely different skill, so there is this exactly this kind of community-based apprenticeship is probably the wrong word, but I can't think of a different way to say it, a stage in between. And I think the community, in the way that we work in the conference a little bit, we really have a small group of people who are in the comfort of their own initiation, in their skill base, who perhaps can support each other, holding spaces like that for a larger group of people, because that's a whole other thing and a whole other level if you're working with groups or with individuals. And of course, we can talk about the distortion that we see within groups, particularly that work with sacred sexuality, or whatever you call that, tantra or womb healing, or in a man, in a woman work, whatever, where you have the guru syndrome and all the problems that causes. So yeah, this is a huge and important topic. Our own integrity, for me, is the absolute key. Consent, learning about what consent actually is, which is triggering. I don't know how you guys experience that in the work when you are working as a healer in a one-to-one, or in a couple, or in a small group setting, where you are the one who is guiding a journey, and so that consensual edge is really, it is a super difficult actual place to get right all the time. And I know I have made mistakes in that at times, just in teaching a workshop, where because everybody's boundaries are so different, particularly when you're working with sexual energy or the body, the physicality of the yoni, of the lingam, of the womb. So yeah, there's so much to
It's
say.
not just the boundaries.
What do you think?
It's the wounding, isn't it? It's the woundings people bring, the healing they need can be so different, and the keys to helping them can be different. And the unhealthy practices are where the trauma's released but not held properly. It's not followed up. It's just, just let it go. It's like a spiritual bypass. Take it out. That's not enough. That is not enough.
Well, I think that's a really important point, Angie, very important point, because in any healing situation, whether you're doing a workshop teaching Reiki, for instance, it's not particularly a sacred sexual workshop or session, then something can be initiated without realizing what exactly is going on. And somebody suddenly, all of a sudden, is realizing that something very deep and sexual is happening and is coming up. And if the person holding that session or that workshop or that energy does not understand what is happening, then there is a problem. And it is a problem.
Yes.
And so how do you overcome that? How do you deal with that?
As a practitioner, I would say be informed first. So that's all the intake forms and having conversations with people before they sign up for deep work to make sure they understand that they need how they can hold themselves and take self-responsibility, so that they're not projecting stuff out onto anyone, but also that if they need support afterwards, I check in, they check back in. They're not just left, they're not just dumped. You're healed, that's it. Because this sort of healing,
and also as the priestess healer or in a therapeutic session, we have to keep informing ourselves as well. We have to become more and more trauma aware, particularly when working with sexual energy, which I love doing. I love bringing the healthy initiations and the actual undoing of some of that trauma, because you can talk about it, but if it's in the body and in the experiences, how do we give another experience that people can grow from into a new dynamic, a new understanding of their own sexuality and their interactions in that? So I think, yes. And then again, also having a circle of equal or people who you can actually, as mentors, refer to, or as practitioners with slightly different fields of expertise who you can actually go and have a conversation around, what best practice would be, or how to be really in the integrity of your best intention, particularly if you're noticing in yourself that your own shadow slips in, which we are humans. This can happen,
Yeah. I think there's a humility, isn't there, with this? There is, I'm present, I'm being present with you, I'm here with you, I'm holding a space for you, but that's all I can do right now. And I think it comes down to love and compassion.
And also knowing what your area of expertise is, and if you're overstretching yourself and it's not your area, being humble enough to say, let me pass you on to someone else.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was going to say, Angie, because I'm here as someone that doesn't work in this. This is not my area of expertise. I've done I don't practice in this area. I don't do healing work in this area. And I think, Katinka, that the term you used, if I go back to what you said, the apprentice, that really resonated with me, because I've done work on myself, but there's no way I would feel that I would want to go into this area and claim to be able to do work with others. And that's why it's wonderful to have people that I can signpost to, that I feel confident in their integrity as a healer, as a teacher, rather than just sending somebody off to Google where they could go, having this toolkit for myself, a name, people to signpost to, that I feel really confident in the integrity of those individuals because maybe I've worked with them or I just know them really, really well. And I think that's something in this area. And it was, if anything, I've come with more questions than answers with this one, because I'm really curious how, as people who work in with sacred sexuality, part of it, my understanding and my experience has been that reaching my boundary point and then being pushed a little bit, learning and healing that wounding by just kind of flexing into it. But it's really interesting how that can, if you're working with somebody that isn't in their integrity, it could be pushed far beyond a place where myself or anybody else that's working in that, as maybe a workshop attendant, they might not want to go. So how is it just kind of feeling into it? How would you know where actually this person needs to, this is a wound that we need to work through, or actually they're owning their no and let's just leave it there? It's I'm in awe of you all for doing that work. It's amazing.
You want to answer that, Sadhu, first? Because I know that you've done an enormous amount of fine-tuning around this, which is so beautiful.
In my collective spaces, in my group spaces, I work with very, I take a good hour at the beginning to explore agreement fields and what that is, and so we can start from a place of being on the same page about what the space we're in is. And for me, part of the agreement fields I set up always includes a support zone where people can actually step out of the main space and go there either to self-regulate, take care of themselves, or to co-regulate, or for me or one of my assistants to actually go there and support them and check in with what is needed. So that's an important piece. Also, coming back to another piece, where the other piece of around trauma. I mean, for me, it's also an important part of the work I do is that I'm trauma informed, but also my work is not trauma centered, and sometimes people are actually in need of work that is actually really trauma centered, and for me that's kind of a precursor to stepping into sacred sexual work. So if that becomes a factor where I feel like I'm identifying that somebody actually needs trauma centered work rather than trauma informed work, then I will not continue with them in the field of sacred sexual exploration. For me, that's kind of like, that's a flag where then I will refer. And I have, I live in Amsterdam. I have several practitioners who I can refer people to for different pieces. And often people go, they do some sessions here, and then they'll come back. But it's about, if I feel that somebody needs trauma centered work, then I'm not going to progress with them in the sacred sexual exploratory field in that moment.
Absolutely.
That's being in integrity, isn't it? It's not just having bums on the seat. Literally, you're being discerning with who you take on. And I've turned people down, and still do, who need to have sessions rather than group work. So I think that's the marker. The people.
I think the trauma directed work is session based. I can't actually see that happening in a group space, because it is way too re-triggering or re-traumatizing. If different people go off in their, I don't actually know how. I have a big question mark how that can be held healthily, actually. And this is, of course, something that we have definitely addressed in the conference, in the designing of ceremonies, where we want to stay away from that. And what you're saying is so beautiful, both you, Angie, and Sadhu, is the trauma informed is not the same as actually working with a trauma. We all have trauma, and we need to be, as practitioners or as priestesses, as priests, we need to be informed about that. It's like, of course. And then how we work with that. I mean, I know you, Angie, in sessions would work, and actually also you, Amanda, you would work very specifically on a piece of trauma. And this is not necessarily anyone that you choose to work with. The consent works both ways as well, and a lot of that for me, and I think maybe also for you, I'd like to hear, is quite intuitive. you know, the red flags are, I mean, they tend to present in a particular form that I'm responding to intuitively, but I don't, you know, it's not a black and white thing, but yeah.
The other thing for me when I was working through my own healing is I have to really trust the space and trust the people I'm with. So that means it has to be beautiful, it has to be clean, there has to be nice music, it has to smell nice. I can't go anywhere grotty because I can't relax. My guard is all up. It's like, oh, this is unclean, this is horrible, dirty. It has to be beautiful. And you know, all our goddess temples are beautiful. You know, we create places of beauty, whether they're for groups or, you know, I'm sitting in my own healing temple space right now. So places of beauty helped me relax, and I hope that helps other people relax too.
Yeah, it's a sacred space, a created space. Yeah.
And I think part of the beauty is that is having done the work. So Angie, having had that experience of your own womb journey, for example, you can use that to work in a really informed way, can't you? And that will have led you to create those beautiful sanctuaries and spaces from your own experiences. Yeah.
And also coming back to goddess, calling her in, invoking her, and trusting, not just giving everything up to her. We're just calling her in to hold that space as the healing happens, as we will be doing this year, I'm sure, many times.
Indeed.
And
I would like to catch up on something that is really, I think, the quintessential question for today. Angie, you said something which was, and also Sadhu, about the trauma part, which is part of this yonic confusion, because I think many of us went through something, or ceremonies or sacred spaces where we were offered kind of a sexual or womb healing, but in the end it was just some kind of release, which is nice anyway. And, you know, it's to release things might be good, but as Angie was pointing out, the healing part is kind of a process. It takes in, and Sadhu was saying as well, it takes in so many different, you know, it's not just trauma release or emotional release. So where as practitioners and experts of this thing, where does the healing part of the womb healing differentiate from, you know, a ceremony of release or just you know, just of trauma manifestation? I don't know. Where does this really changes? And
yeah, well, for me, I could jump in and answer that. So most women I see have some sort of disease. They're out of balance in some way. So the actual physical marker is there's an improvement in whatever disease there is. So they don't need surgery, they don't need a hysterectomy, fibroids shrink, you know, something changes. So their body is healing. There's a big part of integration for me. It's the healing's done, but they have to integrate it. It's not, yeah, of course, miracles happen, things do happen, but going away and, you know, being with what's happened, integrating it fully, not just, oh, that hasn't worked, what's next? You know, going from therapist to therapist to therapist, rather than just, okay, what really is going on for me? What have I received? What is my body saying to me now? So it's not giving your power away as an individual. It's receiving the healings, receiving the teachings or the trainings, but actually, how do I feel about that? How does it resonate with me? So it's coming back to your own gnosis, your own inner radar, really. That's my take on that.
Yes, so for me, like both as a practitioner and what I want to instill in the people I'm working with is really continued listening. So as a practitioner, I'm looking to continue to listen to the subtle changes in the space and the person, and to really follow them, and then I'm looking for the space to entrain that person to do the same thing for themselves, to listen to the subtle changes inside of themselves, and, you know, and their womb space, their genital space when we're doing sexual healing, really to develop their communication with this space in their bodies, and to learn to lead from there. And yeah, and this then tends, when, you know, when we have like a established channel of communication going on, it tends to lead us to people who can actually support us in the ways that we need, and we can actually move from resonance rather than just looking at lots of information and kind of like, who shall I work with, what looks good, what's the latest trend, what's the new hype. Actually, we can then move from felt resonance inside of our body. Yes, this resonates in my body in terms of what the next step is as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think for me, there's to really feel into this question. For me, there is a difference between an emotional release, which can be very healing, or it's not necessarily trauma. It can be pleasure. Heightening the sacred life force as sexual energy in the body, and the expansion. And expansion can actually be triggering if somebody is in dissociation a lot of the time. They are already kind of out. So for me, I'm working very much with coming into the body, working with pleasure as a way of expanding and relearning to trust our own sacred sexual energy, to actually feel something which may then lead to an emotional release or healing, or a retraining of a muscle in the subtle body, as well as perhaps in the physical body, to actually re-regulate itself into what our bodies are actually designed for biologically, as conduits for this amazing, beautiful energy that connects to the spiritual realm, to the spiritual energy field. So there is the purpose or the intention behind something is very, very important in this fine-tuning of what we're doing. And the responsibility as the priestess in that place of working with people is not, I'm going to give them a nice high so that they go away on a good feeling. I mean, that's great, but so what? Everybody will ping back and nothing will change. So if we're working with healing with this, you cannot be in the place of being the magician who makes it happen, the authoritarian who can wave the magic wand, or activate the kundalini and give you an orgasm, whatever. If you're in that place, for me, it's off. That the work is a service. It's in a place of utter service, and I think this is what. And even then, it's the moment you go into the more subtle interactions with people, it has to be for their greater good and for their greater well-being. And so where we take that, how we direct that, it is intuitive a lot of the time. And you have to keep having that feedback loop. I mean, Caroline, you said something about being pushed just outside the comfort zone. And really, it's like an invitation. It's not really pushing. It's an invitation from the outside rather than a pushing from the inside, And even then, because of all the dynamics of the conditioning, it's a tricky area, but it is beautiful. And like Angie and you, 𝘬𝗪, said, it's the results. People change, their relationships become rich, their sexual life with themselves and with others become completely changed.
Oh, thank you, Bliss.
Oh, Bliss!
Say hi to Bliss that is here with us, and we say hi also to all the people following us on live on Facebook. And we remind you that we're here each Tuesday, so please follow us, and also find us on podcast on YouTube. Sorry, small advertising aside. Hi, Bliss. There was a comment before that got deleted because it was possibly spam, and that's something that happens though. And I want to mention that because the spam comments reported something that might have happened to all of you working in this field. So the spam comment was posting, telling people to go to look for someone on the web, which is a spellcaster that does, sexual healing and stuff. What you mentioned really loudly before was the community part of this, where you actually in, you have suggestions of people, but many people go through hell and back into this yonic confusion when they venture onto this people on the web suggesting them random people, and they believe that, so they go after people, and they find as imposters and people doing all sorts of rubbish, really, things. And has it ever happened to you as practitioners and healers to find something that got so deeply wounded from this kind of experiences, and how did you help them to regain confidence again in the womb healing and yonic healing process?
𝗪𝗓, you were nodding.
Yes, I've had a number of people come to me over the years who have had sexually abusive experiences in tantric session spaces, where something, where a practitioner has started to orally pleasure them, or something like this, and something that has not been articulated in the agreement field has suddenly come in. And for me, when I work with people who have had these experiences, and there's quite a number, the first sessions really are so much about, again, establishing the agreement field, establishing what's possible, what's not possible, where their body is in terms of receiving touch, trusting touch, all of these pieces, so that we can actually build a safe container for them to have an experience. And also, I work in series of sessions because often people feel a call to sexual healing, but actually in their bodies they're not ready to step into genital touch on the first session with somebody they've just met. And sometimes people are, but a lot of the time they're not. And especially in these cases, I think that's often very counterproductive to actually step into that with people who have had abusive experiences in session spaces.
Yeah, and also I can add to that. The women I see for their womb healing have had medical trauma, so invasive procedures. Especially during lockdown, birth on their own, abortions on their own. But now, smear tests and all different sorts of gynae procedures without anaesthetic, just horrific. So it goes on in the medical profession, and we're hearing a lot more about that right now. They're doing a lot more research on it, lots of different reports coming out. So it's not just in the alternative health field. All this sort of people you go to support you for healing aren't necessarily coming from that energy of, yes, I'm here to help you. Are they really listening to your needs? So I see women who are at the end of their tether. They've probably tried everything, and they need someone to trust, or they need someone to listen to them, and they don't get that with a medical profession. How long do you get? 5 minutes? Yeah.
There are some very good medical practitioners, and
there are.
Good.
Of course there are. But I don't see them or hear about those ones.
Well, there are.
Bliss comments with us. This is Bliss comments on Facebook. This is common and must be addressed through accountable and integral practitioners working in a trauma-informed way. And once again, I think the correct point that was pointed out is community in the end, because how can we trust through other people's experiences, and
but that is also a dangerous thing. Okay, because the community of sycophants who cover up or collude practices that are power over based, or that are non-consensual based, because this is actually very common. So what kind of structure of community? And actually, I agree with Amanda. There's some very beautiful practitioners within the medical world who are actually way showing how to communicate with people when you are working sexually. There are also other people like Angie that I hear about who are appallingly bad at dealing with the personal and human side of their medical skill. It's like like car mechanics is how they treat a human body. So this kind of the community element that you're bringing in, which we tried to create in last year's Goddess Conference in one of our ceremony, and I think did very well. We held the sacred space very, very beautifully, but it can also flip the other way, and we have to be so careful with what we hold up as the solution, because I think particularly when you're working with sacred sexuality or with the physicality of the body, when we're looking at our sexuality in all its varied forms, it is very individual, and long may it be so. So yeah.
I was meaning about the trust web. I was talking about the trust, the web of trust, as 𝘧𝗔 was talking about before. When you, so it was, yeah, indeed from a practitioner point of view, where you develop a web of people, a community of practitioners that you trust, and you can send your people to if they need something that you cannot provide, maybe. So that is like 𝘧𝗔 has developed. If somebody comes to me and I cannot provide what they need, maybe I can send them to other people I can trust. But yeah, it's true that in a wider sense, community, it can be a dangerous thing, because there are psychophants who will go out to
Amanda,
the
you wanted to add something to that?
I'm just referring really to my own experience on occasion, and I accept that I have responsibility as well as a person who's receiving healing or going to a workshop or whatever it is. I have a responsibility too, in that if I feel I can't be held here, if this isn't going to meet me in places where I need to be held, then I have a responsibility to leave, or to speak, or to act in my own self-interest in some way. I mean, I am participating, and I think I have to come with some form of self-responsibility. And there was an interesting situation, if I may quickly share it, where I'd gone into a breathwork workshop and felt that I really could go there and really go into a deep, deep space within me, which I really needed to do in this instance. But the workshop leader that could not hold me. So I was okay. It was okay, and I came through that really quite okay. But she asked me not to come back because it would frighten other people. Now, she couldn't hold that space, or this person couldn't hold that space for me, and she felt out of her depth, and that's okay. That's okay. My responsibility there was that actually my needs are not being met. I actually can't be fully held. But I was actually quite willing to go back.
Yeah.
So, and I think, Angie, if you remember, there was a situation where I really had gone into another very deep space and couldn't really be understood or held by anybody who was leading. But you were a participant, and you came and you stepped into that gap.
Well, that comes back to the intuition that Katinka was talking about earlier. I could see what you needed and that you weren't getting it.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is to do no harm, to not make anybody worse than when they've walked into the room, or whether that's a treatment room or a temple space, and to be left hanging or rejected completely. Don't come back. I can't cope with you. You're too much, or you might trigger someone else. How does that land with you?
Yes,
So
I
sorry
mean,
about
but this is what opens up in these spaces, because they're unregulated spaces. They're not regulated, and there isn't a whole batch of qualifications that have to be, checked off and all the rest of it. So, and we're dealing with unpredictable, energetic movement, aren't we? And
Yeah.
deep unconscious feeling.
For me, this does, talking what you were saying, Amanda, about that self-responsibility, it really comes back to, I think there's been a thread going through about trusting the body, hasn't there? And really that self-trust of knowing your body, knowing your breath even, and thinking, I've got tightness, I'm not, there's something going on for me. And then that's that opportunity to either speak to somebody there. Sadhu, it sounds great that, you've got those spaces like a breakout space where someone can go to if they feel that need. And it's really, as a participant, I would listen to my body. And I think that's it's so, that trust that we can have in ourselves is really powerful. I'm just trying to read that one.
Nice question from Denise. Thank you, Denise. It's a very good question. I think that for me, there is, if you are, do you want to read it out, Andrea? Yes, please do.
For the podcast. If you're all new to this type of healing, is there any do's and don'ts when choosing technically a healer for you? What are the red flags?
So I think that you need to work, when you're looking for someone to work with, it's really important to tune into, first of all, whether you want to work with a man or with a woman, because if you're working with sexual healing, this is a different energetic, and both can be very, very healing and very appropriate for different people. And you might want to work with one first and with the other after. And then people who have clearly many years of experience, and then watch. So, for example, many years ago, I was with in a tantric training, and what I noticed was that the particular teacher, who also was or certainly advertised as a great healer, which they may well have been or not, would choose the prettiest, youngest person in the space to do a demonstration of some sort within the practices that we were being taught in this training course. And for me, that was a red flag. So I think and I'm telling that story not to be judgmental about how other people do their thing, but as a participant, feel into where in your authenticity the integrity of someone else is at, and watch all the places in ourselves that want to be chosen, that want to be the good girl or the good boy, that want to be teacher's pets, that feel, oh yes, well, I'm the chosen one, or whatever. Yeah, or I'm not the chosen one, I'm not good enough, whatever these little places are that we all have. Because the negative hooks, like in any relationship, in a healer-client relationship, are in play as much as the positive hooks. So the wounding dynamics seek each other like a magnetism, as does the gift dynamic that seeks each other. So for me to be aware of that, follow your intuition, but really scan for yourself, in yourself. And then, of course, the credentials of someone who has been in the field for a longer time. It's not that people who just begin can't be amazing, but if you are really beginning yourself and you have stuff to work on, I would say that is a good place to start.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. So Denise, I would say look at all their communications, look at their website, look at how they put themselves out into the world, look at their emails. How do they answer your questions? Are they available for a one-to-one chat first? Or are you halted in your communication? Are they not open to sharing with you what a session looks like or the training looks like? So if their energy is off from the beginning, then that's the key. Don't go there. If they're open and inclusive and they're coming from a place of how can I help you? Am I a right fit for you? Let's have a chat about it, then great. So that's what I would say. The red flags would be just book onto the course, no communication, no answers to your questions. That would be a red flag to me.
I think for me, a big piece here is also when you're looking for practitioners, facilitators in body-based therapeutic processes. I'm looking for somebody who is, ultimately in awe of the healing capacity of the body and not in awe of themselves as a practitioner. And I think this is this is a big one, and this is quite easy to pick up quite early on, where you see how people talk about the work they do, whether it's more about themselves or it's actually more about the incredible transformational potential of the body, which is what we're all harnessing here. And so if people are really in awe of that and kind of in reverence to that, and and offering their work up to that, then I think for me that's always a good sign. And this also for me comes from a connection of something bigger than your individual experience, than your personal self, and ultimately some connection to spirit, to goddess, to the big forces that are alive and supporting the world. Regardless of what you believe, is there an anchoring of what this person is doing in something bigger, in some big vision that's not focused on their own personal aggrandizement? Well, yes.
Spot on. Yes, definitely. And Bliss had a nice comment as well and brought it back to community. Can you refine that for us, Andrea? Keeping safe is a team effort that involves all of us in the dynamics, for sure. Yes. And I think this is something about the healthy tribe we're trying to create. That's very much part, of course, of the intention of the Goddess Conference, but also with the work of Rhiannon around sacred sexuality, where we can trust each other, not just to be supportive, but to be in the same awareness level, and to have each other's support really for when different people need different things at different times when we're working together. I think I keep coming back to last year's Goddess Conference, where we held this specific ceremonial space together, where that was just such a joy.
Let's name it. It was a temple of yonic mysteries. So it's very topical today. It was very, very beautiful and really, really anchored in the relational dynamics of the team, who we really were able to drop in together and really knew the frequency of what was coming through, and really able to support people to access that in a way that really nourished them and benefited them.
It is a transformational space.
Yeah.
Yes, and I do believe in my core that it can and will change the world. So that's, whatever is needed, really. Yeah.
Love.
Yeah.
Authentic, genuine healing love. Yeah, completely.
And accountability is a huge place here, and learning to step into accountability circles and accountability processes. And many of us here have trained with Katinka on the in different forms of the priestess of Rhiannon training, and there's so much about how to sit in circle and how to hold one another accountable for the changes that we want to make, and the people that we want to be. And this loving field of accountability is such a key place for me, to have people around me who can actually mirror to me when things are off.
Yes, it's all about reflection as well, isn't it? That's reflection as well, and
absolutely.
But it's being open to listen to that, isn't it? Not every practitioner or every teacher or facilitator. Well, I can think of a few who don't ask for feedback. I don't accept feedback. So that's another red flag for me. Yeah. So we are different. We do listen. We are open, very open to hearing what people have got to say, and feedback is so important. How to make things better each year in conference, to make sure that there is that, not just physical support, but psychological support, it is important, and we really care for the people who come. You know, we want them to have an amazing held experience, especially with the goddesses of healing, you know.
And just to remind you all that this year's theme is the Goddess of Healing at the Goddess Cup. Thank you, Angie. That was a perfect hook. I love it. To remind you all that this year's theme is the Goddess of Healing, please check out our theme for this year's Goddess Conference. Join us this year for the 29th Glastonbury Goddess Conference, a joyful gathering of goddess-loving people, a 6 days in-person event in Glastonbury, Avalon, running from Tuesday 30th July to Sunday 4th August 2024, with the fringe events starting from Sunday 28th July. This year the theme is the Goddess of Healing. It's our maiden year, the first year of a new 5-year cycle. International presenters, transformative workshops and experiences, deep ceremonies on the sacred land of Avalon, community, art, fun, and love for Goddess. Let your healing journey begin this year. Join us for the Glastonbury Goddess Conference, Goddess of Healing. There are so many. And those images you see in the promo are actually true. I mean, beautiful spaces held by Katinka, Sadhu, Amanda, Angie, Caroline, creating this year once again beautiful temple spaces, safe spaces for all of us to experience from all kind of genders, sexualities, backgrounds you might have. You're welcome, welcome, welcome to come. Katinka, would you love to say something to our listeners to join us for this year's conference as well?
I think that this year the maiden energy is the energy of renewal, and her healing in all forms, not just yonic or womb or sexual healing based, is going to be this amazing golden thread that will weave through your life. Come, 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 be part of this tapestry of love. Come and receive. Come and open. Come and be nourished by her healing love in all its forms, like the many flowers of her herbs. Her green mantle will surround and heal you. So please come and join us.
Thank you so much, Katinka. Thank you. Thank you, Sadhu, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angie, so much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And thank you, Andrea.
Yes, thank you.
Andrea.
And
I just want to say one thing, that it looks really lush on the video, and it is even more lush when you are there in person. So you see this film and you're like, wow, that looks phenomenal. It's not polished or anything. It is even more lush and delicious and fabulous in person.
It is.
Make the journey.
Thank you, Sadhu. And thank you everyone who listens to us on the podcast, who watches us live on Facebook, and joins us then after on YouTube. So please keep on following us, and if you have any questions, please comment right away, and we'll be back to you within the week or next week in the next live. Thank you so much for following. Bye.
Bye.
This is The Roundtable, a talk show brought to you by the Glastonbury Goddess Conference. In this circle, the priestesses of the ceremonial circle, the weavers of our annual gathering, talk about pivotal topics about our community, spirituality, and goddess.